Ladies and gentlemen, there's a power that most of us overlook in the face of disrespect. It's a power so profound, yet so misunderstood, that many fail to grasp its full potential. I'm talking about silence. Not the silence of fear, not the silence of ignorance, but the silence that speaks louder than any words ever could. In today's world, we're conditioned to react, to respond immediately when someone disrespects us. We've been taught that to say nothing is to admit defeat. But I'm here to tell you that the greatest warriors in life are often those who choose silence in the midst of conflict. Why? Because your silence after the disrespect is killing them. Now, I want you to stay with me on this journey, because what I'm about to share will not only change the way you respond to the challenges in your life, but it will also reveal the incredible power you hold in your silence. I guarantee you, by the end of this message, you will understand why silence, intentional, purposeful silence, is your greatest weapon against disrespect. The power of silence is a concept often overlooked in our noisy, reactive world. Many of us are conditioned to think that silence is passive, that it reflects submission or a lack of strength. But silence, when used with intention, is anything but passive. It is an active, deliberate choice that can carry more weight than the loudest words. Silence, especially after disrespect, has the ability to reshape the dynamics of relationships, confront conflicts in unexpected ways, and create space for introspection that words simply cannot achieve. When we think about silence, we often associate it with avoidance or fear, choosing not to speak because we don't know how to respond or because we're too afraid to confront the situation. But in reality, silence can be a tool of great wisdom and self-mastery. It's not about avoiding the problem or pretending it doesn't exist. It's about making a conscious decision to not engage in the way others expect you to. The true power of silence lies in its ability to disrupt the normal flow of communication, especially in moments of disrespect. When someone disrespects you, their goal is usually to provoke a reaction. They want you to respond with anger, defensiveness, or hurt, because that reaction gives them a sense of control. It validates their actions and allows them to continue playing the game of disrespect. But when you meet their insults or belittling words with silence, you take away that power. You don't give them the satisfaction of controlling your emotions or dictating how you should respond. Instead, your silence communicates something far more powerful: that you are in control, that you won't stoop to their level, and that their words do not have the power to define you. This is where silence becomes a form of power. In a world where people are so quick to speak, to defend themselves, and to react impulsively, silence stands out as something unusual, even unsettling. It creates a space that forces the other person to confront themselves rather than focusing on you. They're left wondering why you didn't react the way they expected. Did you not hear them? Do you not care? Is there something wrong with them? This internal dialogue starts to take place within the person who disrespected you, and that's where the true battle begins. Silence can also act as a mirror, reflecting back to the offender their own behavior. In that stillness, they are forced to sit with their words and actions. Without the distraction of your emotional reaction, they have to confront what they've said and done. This moment of introspection is often far more powerful than any verbal retort could ever be. When you respond with silence, you're not engaging in the external conflict. Instead, you're prompting the other person to engage in an internal one. They are left alone with their conscience, their guilt, and their own insecurities. This is the moment where true change can begin, because the person is forced to reflect on their actions, not through the lens of your response, but through the lens of their own awareness. Silence is often misunderstood as a sign of weakness. People might think that if you don't respond, it's because you're afraid or unsure of yourself. But in reality, silence requires tremendous strength and self-control. It takes emotional discipline to hold back your immediate reactions and not get pulled into a conflict. It shows that you have mastery over your emotions, that you're not easily swayed by what others say or do. This kind of silence is not about suppressing your feelings. It's about choosing to respond in a way that aligns with your inner strength and dignity. Silence also communicates self-respect. When you refuse to engage with disrespectful behavior, you're setting a boundary. You're saying without words that you won't participate in a conversation or interaction that diminishes your value. You're choosing to protect your peace rather than give someone else the satisfaction of disturbing it. In this way, silence becomes an act of self-care. It allows you to maintain your integrity and your emotional well-being, even in the face of negativity. The power of silence is most evident when we look at how it transforms the dynamic of power in a conflict. In a disrespectful exchange, the person who reacts emotionally is often seen as the one who has lost control. They've been provoked and they've allowed someone else to dictate their emotional state. But the person who remains silent retains their power. They don't give the offender any leverage over their emotions or actions. Instead, they hold on to their own sense of control and refuse to be drawn into a battle that isn't worth fighting. Silence also has a way of shifting the focus from external conflict to internal reflection. When you remain silent in the face of disrespect, the other person is left with nothing but their own thoughts. They may replay the interaction in their mind, wondering why you didn't respond or what your silence means. This creates a kind of psychological tension that forces them to reflect on their behavior. In many cases, they may start to question themselves, realizing that their disrespectful actions didn't elicit the reaction they were expecting. Over time, this reflection can lead to a shift in their behavior as they come to understand the impact of their words and the strength of your silence. The power of silence is not to be underestimated. It's not about avoiding conflict or pretending that disrespect doesn't affect you. Instead, it's about making a conscious decision to rise above the noise, to protect your peace, and to assert your control in a situation where others are trying to provoke you. Silence is not weakness, it's strength. It's wisdom. And in many cases, it's the most powerful response you can give to those who seek to diminish your value. The impact of disrespect is something we've all felt at some point in our lives. It stings, wounds our pride, and often leaves us feeling diminished. Whether it comes from a friend, a colleague, or even a stranger, disrespect carries with it a sense of violation. But what is even more important than the act of disrespect itself is how we choose to respond to it. When someone disrespects you, their ultimate goal, whether they are conscious of it or not, is often to provoke a reaction. Disrespect is not just an insult, it's an attempt to control the dynamic, to assert dominance, and to pull you into their emotional sphere. When we react to disrespect, we typically do so in one of two ways. We either retaliate with anger or we withdraw, feeling hurt and wounded. Both of these responses, however, play right into the hands of the person who disrespected us. Anger, though it may feel powerful in the moment, often fuels the conflict further. It gives the offender exactly what they wanted, a reaction that validates their behavior and keeps the cycle of negativity spinning. On the other hand, withdrawing and internalizing the hurt can leave us feeling powerless, as if we've allowed the other person to win. But what if there was a third option? What if, instead of reacting with anger or retreating in pain, we simply chose silence? The impact of disrespect changes dramatically when it is met with silence. Silence, in this context, is not passive. It's a powerful statement that communicates more than words ever could. By not responding in the way the person expects, you immediately shift the balance of power in the situation. You take control not of the other person, but of yourself, and that is where true power lies. Disrespect thrives on conflict. It feeds on the emotions it provokes, whether it's anger, frustration, or sadness. The person who disrespects you often wants to elicit these reactions because it reaffirms their sense of superiority or control. But when you choose not to respond, when you meet their disrespect with silence, you deny them the very thing they seek. They expect you to fight back, to defend yourself, or to show that their words have hurt you. But by not reacting, you disrupt the entire dynamic. Your silence creates a void, and in that void, the person who disrespected you is left to face their own behavior. This is where the psychological impact of disrespect truly begins to unfold. Most people expect an immediate emotional response to their actions, especially when they've been intentionally hurtful. But when there's no reaction, when there's only silence, it forces them to pause and reflect. They may not show it on the surface, but internally, they're likely asking themselves, why didn't they react? Did I say something wrong? What does this silence mean? This internal questioning can be far more powerful than any external conflict because it makes the person confront their own behavior without the distraction of your emotions clouding the issue. Disrespect, at its core, is often a reflection of the person who is doing the disrespecting. It's less about you and more about their insecurities, their need for control, or their lack of empathy. When you respond with silence, you're not allowing them to project their issues onto you. Instead, you hold up a mirror to their actions, forcing them to look at themselves. Without your reaction to latch onto, they are left alone with their behavior, and that can be a deeply uncomfortable experience for them. Disrespect tends to escalate when it's met with more conflict. Think about a situation where someone insults you and you immediately fire back with an insult of your own. The conversation quickly devolves into a shouting match, with each side trying to one-up the other. In the heat of the moment, nothing productive happens. The original issue gets lost in the back and forth, and both parties walk away feeling worse than they did before. But when you respond with silence, you stop that escalation before it even begins. You create a space where reflection can occur, both for you and for the person who disrespected you. Silence also demonstrates a deep level of self-control and emotional intelligence. It shows that you are not easily swayed by the actions of others, that you understand your worth, and that you refuse to let someone else's behavior dictate how you feel or react. This kind of self-control is not about suppressing your emotions, but about mastering them. It's about recognizing that not every insult requires a response, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to say nothing at all. Disrespect can only affect you to the extent that you allow it to. When you engage with it, when you let it provoke you, you're giving the other person power over you. But when you choose silence, you're taking that power back. You're saying without words that you are in control of your own emotions and that their words do not define you. This is a message far stronger than any angry retort could ever be. There's another important aspect to the power of silence in the face of disrespect that communicates boundaries. By not engaging with the disrespect, you're signaling that you won't tolerate such behavior. You're setting a clear line that says, I know my worth and I won't be drawn into this negative interaction. Silence, in this case, isn't about avoiding confrontation, it's about choosing which battles are worth fighting. It's about deciding that your peace of mind is more valuable than proving a point to someone who doesn't deserve your energy. In situations where disrespect is chronic or ongoing, silence can also serve as a powerful tool for self-preservation. Engaging with constant negativity can be exhausting and draining, both emotionally and mentally. By choosing silence, you protect yourself from being dragged into a cycle of disrespect that only harms you in the long run. It allows you to rise above the pettiness and keep your focus on what truly matters, your own well-being and peace of mind. The impact of disrespect is not just about the words or actions of the person who disrespects you. It's about how you choose to respond. By meeting disrespect with silence, you take control of the situation, deny the other person the reaction they seek, and force them to confront their own behavior. You protect your peace, demonstrate self-respect, and communicate that you won't allow anyone else's actions to define you. And in doing so, you turn what could have been a moment of conflict into an... Disrespect can be deeply unsettling, often shaking our sense of self-worth, pride, and dignity. When we face it, the natural reaction is to defend ourselves, speak out, and sometimes retaliate. But there is a profound strength in choosing not to respond with words. In fact, silence can be a force of psychological warfare, subtle yet potent. It's a weapon that doesn't involve shouting, arguing, or defending. Rather, it involves restraint, self-mastery, and letting the offender grapple with their own actions. When someone disrespects you and is met with silence, it's not just about ignoring them, it's about turning their own actions back on them, forcing them to confront what they've done in ways they never expected. The psychology behind this can be both unsettling and transformative for the person who has acted disrespectfully. They have launched an attack, an insult, or a demeaning comment with the expectation that you will engage in a back and forth exchange. This engagement is critical to their strategy. It's how they maintain power and control in the interaction. Disrespect is often designed to provoke a reaction because that reaction confirms their dominance. They want to see you flustered, defensive, or upset because it feeds their sense of superiority. In some cases, it might even serve as a form of validation for their own insecurities. But when they are met with silence, that entire dynamic collapses. Silence in this context is not passive, it is active. It's a conscious choice to disarm the aggressor by refusing to play their game. By not responding, you are sending a message that their words hold no power over you. You are refusing to be drawn into their emotional chaos. And in doing so, you create a psychological gap that they did not anticipate. They are left alone with their words and actions, with no response to fuel the conflict. This moment of silence acts as a mirror, reflecting their behavior back to them without the distraction of your emotions clouding their view. For many people, disrespect is a tool to manipulate others into reacting emotionally. But silence interrupts that manipulation. It robs them of their ability to control the narrative of the conversation. The psychological impact of this is significant because it forces them to confront their behavior on a deeper level. When someone disrespects you and receives no immediate reaction, they may initially feel confused, even frustrated. Their insult or criticism hangs in the air without validation or escalation, and they are left wondering what went wrong. Why didn't they react? Did they not hear me? Did they not care? These questions begin to gnaw at them, and in many cases they start to doubt themselves. This self-doubt is where silence becomes most powerful. It triggers a psychological shift in the person who has disrespected you. Instead of focusing on your reaction, they are forced to focus on their own behavior. The absence of your response leaves them with no outlet for their aggression, no way to further assert their dominance. They are left to wrestle with their conscience, with the possibility that they were wrong in their approach. This introspection can lead to guilt, embarrassment, or even remorse. It's a silent, internal struggle that is far more powerful than any verbal confrontation could ever be. Silence also creates an air of unpredictability. When someone disrespects you, they often expect a specific reaction to come back, a rebuttal, or a defensive stance. This predictability allows them to feel in control of the situation. But when you remain silent, you become unpredictable, and unpredictability is unsettling. The aggressor doesn't know what to expect next. Are you angry? Are you indifferent? Will you confront them later? Or are you simply too unaffected by their words to care? This uncertainty can cause them to rethink their entire approach, making them more cautious in how they interact with you in the future. Silence gives you the upper hand because it shows that you are in control not just of the situation but of yourself. One of the greatest psychological strengths a person can possess is the ability to regulate their emotions and not allow others to dictate how they feel or act. By choosing silence, you demonstrate that you are not easily manipulated by someone else's disrespect. You show that you value your peace and self-worth more than the need to engage in a pointless argument or defend yourself against baseless attacks. This kind of emotional self-mastery also serves as a boundary. It communicates to the other person that their disrespect will not be tolerated, not because you need to retaliate, but because you are above such behavior. You refuse to participate in interactions that are harmful or degrading. This boundary, communicated through silence, forces the person who disrespected you to reconsider how they treat you. They may not change overnight, but over time they will come to realize that their attempts to provoke you are futile. Silence can be particularly effective in professional or social situations where maintaining composure is crucial. In such settings, responding to disrespect with silence can protect your reputation and maintain your dignity. It shows others that you are not easily rattled and that you handle conflict with grace and poise. This not only earns you respect from bystanders, but also undermines the credibility of the person who disrespected you. When they fail to provoke a reaction, they lose the upper hand in the eyes of others, and their behavior is exposed for what it is: petty, immature, and unworthy of your attention. In the long run, silence allows you to maintain your peace of mind. Disrespectful people often seek to disrupt your emotional balance, pulling you into their negativity. But when you choose not to engage, you protect your inner peace. You don't allow their actions to disturb your mental or emotional state. This form of self-protection is invaluable because it ensures that you stay grounded, focused, and in control of your own well-being. Silence in the face of disrespect is a powerful psychological tool. It forces the aggressor to confront their own actions, disrupts their expectations, and undermines their sense of control. It demonstrates emotional self-mastery, sets clear boundaries, and protects your peace. Rather than allowing someone else's disrespect to define you or dictate your reactions, silence gives you the upper hand by allowing you to rise above the negativity. It's a form of psychological warfare that leaves the aggressor grappling with their own behavior while you remain calm, composed, and in control. Silence after disrespect can cause a powerful shift in the balance of power. Disrespect is typically used as a tool of domination an attempt to belittle or diminish someone. It's an effort to establish control or superiority in a relationship or interaction. When the person on the receiving end of that disrespect chooses silence instead of retaliation or defense, it completely disrupts this dynamic. The balance of power that the aggressor seeks is undermined because they don't get the emotional reaction they expect or desire. They are left in a vacuum of uncertainty, which often shifts the power dynamics in favor of the person who remains silent. Power in human interactions is often maintained through verbal exchanges. The one who speaks, who controls the narrative, typically feels in control of the situation. When someone disrespects you, they expect a response. This expectation is part of the power play. They want to pull you into an exchange where they have the upper hand. By insulting or demeaning you, they aim to provoke a reaction that allows them to further assert dominance. Whether it's a heated argument, a defensive rebuttal, or an emotional outburst, any of these responses would feed into the aggressor's plan to maintain control of the situation. When you choose silence, you deny them that satisfaction. The aggressor is left holding the weight of their own words without any feedback to bolster their position. It's almost like they've thrown a punch, but instead of hitting the target, their blow is absorbed by air. Without the engagement they were counting on, the power they were trying to assert remains ungrounded. This lack of response disrupts the power they had hoped to gain, leaving them in a state of uncertainty and confusion. Silence, in this case, becomes an act of defiance and unspoken declaration that the aggressor's words hold no power over you. It conveys a sense of confidence and self-assurance that is deeply unsettling for the person who tried to disrespect you. They may have expected anger, hurt, or defensiveness, but instead they are met with stillness. This creates a power shift because the silence suggests that you are above their pettiness, that their words are insignificant in your life. Instead of feeling dominant, they may start to feel insecure, wondering why their attempt to disrespect you failed so completely. This shift in power is often accompanied by a psychological phenomenon called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance occurs when someone's beliefs or actions don't align with the outcome they were expecting, creating discomfort and internal conflict. The person who disrespected you was expecting a certain response, maybe a heated argument, maybe a defensive reaction, but instead they are faced with silence. This causes them to question their own behavior. Why didn't they respond? Did I go too far? Did I miscalculate the situation? These doubts can start to undermine their confidence, forcing them to reevaluate their actions and their assumptions about you. The more the aggressor reflects on their actions in the face of silence, the more likely they are to recognize that their attempt to assert power through disrespect has backfired. Instead of elevating themselves, they find themselves standing alone in a position of weakness. They might begin to question their motives, realizing that the very act of disrespect was born out of insecurity or a desire for validation that you didn't give them. This self-reflection can lead to feelings of embarrassment, shame, or even guilt, further eroding their sense of power. Silence can create a space for the aggressor to feel the full impact of their disrespect. In the heat of the moment when they lash out or belittle you, they may not fully understand the weight of their words. But when met with silence, they are forced to sit with what they've said. There's no immediate distraction of a counter-argument or a defensive response to diffuse the situation. Instead, they are left to marinate in their own disrespect, which can be deeply uncomfortable. Over time, this discomfort can erode their sense of superiority as they begin to realize that their behavior was unnecessary or unworthy of your attention. In many cases, this power shift caused by silence can lead to a change in behavior. The aggressor, once they realize that their attempts to belittle you have failed, may start to approach you with more respect in the future. They recognize that their words do not have the power to control you or diminish your self-worth, and as a result, they may become more cautious in how they interact with you. This change is a direct consequence of the power shift. By choosing silence, you have shown them that their attempts to dominate you through disrespect are ineffective, and this forces them to reconsider their approach. The power shift created by silence also has a profound impact on the dynamics of social groups. When disrespect occurs in a public or social setting, bystanders often observe how the interaction unfolds. If you respond to disrespect with anger or defensiveness, the aggressor may still be able to maintain their sense of control. even if the exchange becomes heated. However, if you remain silent, the bystanders will see a different kind of power at play. They will witness the aggressor floundering in the absence of a reaction, unsure of how to proceed. This not only undermines the aggressor's position, but also elevates yours in the eyes of others. Your silence is perceived as strength, composure, and emotional maturity, qualities that naturally shift the balance of power in your favor. This shift in social power can also deter future acts of disrespect. Once the aggressor sees that their attempts to belittle you have not only failed but also backfired, they may be reluctant to try again. They know that you won't engage in their game, and this makes you an unappealing target for future attacks. At the same time, others in the social group may take note of how you handle the situation with grace and may become less likely to disrespect you in the future. Your silence has established a new power dynamic, one in which you are seen as strong, confident, and untouchable by petty insults. The power shift that occurs when you respond to disrespect with silence is both psychological and social. It disarms the aggressor, forcing them to question their actions and reconsider their approach. It elevates you in the eyes of others, as your composure and restraint are seen as marks of strength. And most importantly, it protects your own sense of self-worth, showing that no one's disrespect has the power to define you or dictate your response. In this way, silence becomes a tool not only for shifting power, but also for maintaining control over your own emotional and mental well-being. Silence, when used as a response to disrespect, can force the person who disrespected you to reflect on their own behavior. Disrespect often stems from a place of insecurity, frustration, or a need for control. When someone disrespects you, they're typically looking for a reaction. They want to see that their words or actions have affected you. This reaction, whether it's anger, hurt, or defensiveness, validates their behavior. It lets them know that they've succeeded in triggering an emotional response. However, when you choose silence, you deny them that validation, creating a space where they are left to grapple with their own actions. Silence doesn't just leave a void, it creates an environment where the person who disrespected you is forced to face their own words and actions without the distraction of your response. This can lead to self-reflection, especially when they expected an immediate emotional reaction. Humans are wired to expect feedback in social interactions, especially when conflict or disrespect is involved. When that feedback is absent, it causes discomfort. In this discomfort, people start to question their own behavior as they are left with nothing to latch onto or defend against. This quiet, introspective moment can be a powerful opportunity for personal growth for the person who disrespected you. By choosing silence, you are, in a sense, holding up a mirror to the other person. Instead of engaging in a back and forth exchange that could escalate the situation or provide them with more opportunities to continue disrespecting you, you allow them to see themselves clearly. They may begin to realize that their behavior was unnecessary or inappropriate. Without the distraction of your response, they are forced to focus on their own actions, and this can lead to an uncomfortable but necessary realization that they were in the wrong. This self-reflection is often the first step toward personal growth and change in behavior. Silence can highlight the aggressor's immaturity or insecurity. Often, those who engage in disrespectful behavior do so because they are dealing with their own unresolved issues. They may be projecting their own insecurities onto others as a way to feel better about themselves or to gain a sense of control in the situation. When they are met with silence, they are left without the validation they were seeking. Instead of feeling powerful, they may begin to feel exposed. They are left to sit with their own feelings of insecurity, and this can prompt them to reflect on why they felt the need to disrespect someone in the first place. This reflective process can be uncomfortable for the aggressor. They may start to question their motives and actions, realizing that their behavior was rooted in their own insecurities or frustrations. Without the emotional distraction of your response, they are forced to confront the reality that their disrespect was an attempt to cover up their own feelings of inadequacy. This realization can lead to feelings of guilt, shame, or embarrassment as they begin to understand that their behavior was not a reflection of you, but rather of themselves. Silence gives the aggressor time to think. In the heat of the moment, people often say or do things they don't fully mean or understand. Disrespect can be impulsive, a knee-jerk reaction to frustration, anger, or insecurity. When you remain silent, you give the person who disrespected you time to process what they've said or done. Without the distraction of your reaction, they have the space to consider the consequences of their actions and reflect on whether their behavior was justified. This space for reflection can be a powerful tool in helping the aggressor realize that their disrespect was not warranted and that they need to reconsider their approach. In some cases, silence can even provoke a sense of regret in the person who disrespected you. When someone disrespects you and you don't respond, it can cause them to second guess themselves. They may start to feel unsure about their behavior, especially if they expected you to react in a certain way and you didn't. This uncertainty can lead to regret, as they realize that their attempt to provoke or belittle you didn't have the desired effect. Instead of feeling empowered by their disrespect, they may begin to feel remorseful, especially if they recognize that their behavior was unnecessary or hurtful. Silence can also lead the aggressor to seek reconciliation. When someone disrespects you and you choose not to engage, it leaves them in a position where they are left with their own actions. As they reflect on their behavior and potentially come to regret it, they may begin to seek a way to make amends. They might approach you with an apology or an attempt to reconcile the situation. This is because your silence has given them the space to reflect on their own actions without the complication of a heated exchange. In this way, silence can become a pathway to resolution, as it encourages the person who disrespected you to take responsibility for their behavior and seek forgiveness. The power of silence lies in its ability to maintain your dignity and composure. By choosing not to respond to disrespect, you communicate that you are above the petty insults or attempts to belittle you. This can force the aggressor to reflect on why they felt the need to disrespect someone who clearly values their own self-worth. Your silence signals that their behavior has not diminished you, and this can prompt them to reflect on why they thought it would. It creates a moment of self-reflection where they are forced to confront the reality that their words or actions were not as powerful as they had hoped. Silence can serve as a reminder of the consequences of disrespect. When someone disrespects you and is met with silence, they are left to sit with their own behavior. Over time, they may come to realize that their actions have consequences, not in the form of a verbal confrontation, but in the form of isolation or distance. Your silence can communicate that their behavior has damaged the relationship, even if you haven't explicitly said so. This can lead the person who disrespected you to reflect on the impact of their actions and the potential loss that comes with treating others poorly. Silence forces the aggressor to confront their own behavior. It creates a space for self-reflection, where they can begin to understand the motivations behind their disrespect and the impact of their actions. Without the distraction of your response, they are left to sit with their own words and actions, which can lead to regret, a desire for reconciliation, or a deeper understanding of their own insecurities. In this way, silence becomes a powerful tool for promoting reflection and growth in the person who disrespected you. When you choose silence in the face of disrespect, it does not mean you are weak or passive. In fact, silence can be a demonstration of tremendous inner strength, especially when dealing with aggression or hostility. It takes self-control, discipline, and emotional intelligence to refrain from responding to provocation. Silence can be a conscious decision that reflects a deep understanding of the power of restraint. You are not reacting out of impulse, but rather you are showing that you are in full control of your emotions and responses. This display of strength can be more impactful than words because it shows that you refuse to be pulled into negativity. Choosing silence in the moment of disrespect signals that you value your peace and integrity more than engaging in unnecessary conflict. Disrespect is often intended to provoke a reaction, to pull you into a confrontation that can spiral out of control. When you respond with silence, you communicate that you are not willing to give away your power to someone who is trying to disrupt your sense of self-worth. You are asserting that your emotional well-being is not dependent on the opinions or behavior of others. This kind of inner strength reflects a deep level of self-awareness and maturity, traits that are often underestimated but highly valuable in maintaining long-term emotional health. In many cases, those who disrespect others do so because they are seeking validation or control. They might be trying to assert dominance in a situation or make themselves feel superior by belittling someone else. When you choose not to engage with their disrespect, you deny them the satisfaction they are seeking. They expect to provoke you, to see you react with anger or frustration. But when you remain silent, they are left without that confirmation of power. Your silence forces them to question the effectiveness of their behavior. In this way, silence becomes an act of defiance, a way of refusing to give the aggressor what they want. Silence in the face of disrespect also highlights a key element of strength, the ability to rise above the fray. When someone disrespects you, they are operating on a lower frequency of behavior, one driven by insecurity, anger, or bitterness. By remaining silent, you are choosing to rise above that. You are communicating that you are not willing to descend to that level of negativity. This kind of emotional detachment is a form of strength because it shows that you are secure enough in yourself to not need to defend or justify your worth. You know who you are, and you do not need the approval or validation of someone who chooses to act with disrespect. Silence can also be a form of self-preservation, a way to protect your own mental and emotional energy. Responding to disrespect requires emotional labor. It can be draining to engage with someone who is trying to bring you down. When you choose silence, you are conserving your energy for things that truly matter. You are deciding that this particular interaction is not worth the emotional investment. In doing so, you are demonstrating the strength to prioritize your own well-being over the need to win an argument or prove a point. This kind of boundary setting is an essential component of maintaining inner strength and peace. Silence can communicate strength because it often demonstrates wisdom. There is a saying that not every battle is worth fighting, and this is especially true when it comes to interpersonal conflict. Silence can be an acknowledgement that the disrespect being shown to you says more about the other person than it does about you. Instead of engaging in a back and forth exchange that could escalate into something more harmful, silence allows you to step back and take a broader perspective on the situation. You recognize that responding to the disrespect will not change the other person's behavior or attitude, and so you choose to take the higher road. This higher road, paved with silence, shows strength because it requires humility and patience. It's easy to lash out when someone disrespects you. It's far more difficult to remain calm and composed, especially when you feel wronged or hurt. By choosing silence, you are demonstrating that you are strong enough to resist the impulse to react in the moment. This kind of patience is a rare and valuable trait, especially in a world where so many people are quick to respond in anger or frustration. It takes a deep inner strength to recognize that not every situation requires a response, and that sometimes silence speaks louder than words. Silence can communicate strength because it allows you to control the narrative. When someone disrespects you, they are often trying to dictate the terms of the interaction. They want to control the conversation and direct your emotions. By remaining silent, you take back that control. You decide how and when you would engage, if at all. This ability to remain in control of your own responses rather than being swayed by the provocations of others is a sign of great strength. You are not letting someone else dictate your emotions or your actions. Instead, you are choosing how to respond or not respond in a way that aligns with your own values and self-respect. Silence in the face of disrespect also allows for measured action if needed. Sometimes the strongest response is not an immediate one. By staying silent, you give yourself the time and space to decide what, if any, action you want to take in response to the disrespect. This could mean addressing the issue at a later time when emotions have cooled and you can speak from a place of calm rather than anger. Or it could mean choosing not to engage at all, recognizing that the disrespect is not worth your time or attention. Either way, silence gives you the power to make that decision from a place of strength and clarity rather than reacting impulsively in the heat of the moment. Silence demonstrates strength because it shows that you are not controlled by external circumstances. Disrespect, like any negative behavior, is an attempt to manipulate or influence how you feel about yourself or the situation. When you choose silence, you are showing that your sense of self-worth and emotional stability are not contingent on how others treat you. You are in control of your own emotions, and you refuse to let someone else's negativity dictate how you feel or respond. This kind of emotional independence is one of the clearest indicators of true strength. In this way, silence is not a passive response, but an active demonstration of strength, self-control, and emotional intelligence. It shows that you are confident enough in yourself to remain unshaken by the disrespect of others. and that you value your peace and integrity above engaging in unnecessary conflict. By choosing silence, you are not only preserving your own emotional well-being, but also creating an opportunity for the person who disrespected you to reflect on their own behavior. Silence in the face of disrespect is not a sign of weakness, but a powerful expression of strength, wisdom, and emotional intelligence. It demonstrates your control over your own responses, a refusal to be dragged into negativity, and a commitment to rising above the petty provocations of others. Through silence, you preserve your inner peace, protect your energy, and maintain your dignity, showing that your worth is not defined by the opinions or actions of those who seek to belittle you. Ultimately, your silence becomes a mirror, forcing others to confront their own actions and leaving them to grapple with the emptiness of their disrespect. It is in this quiet resolve that true power lies, and it is this power that will speak volumes, even when no words are spoken.